Hi bodyweight strength athletes, we have Q&A session number 3. Bodyweight strength Q&A, you ask the questions on the Instagram story. I'll get to most of them. There's tons of questions, I can't cover all of them, but keep the questions coming and eventually I'll answer yours too. If you're looking for bodyweight strength and size programs, check the link in the description below. Tons of good stuff. Let's crack right in. Siner Temiz asks, is 2 meals a day enough for a calisthenic athlete to improve overall strength and skills? So, calisthenics is a relative strength sport. For skills, it is extremely important to dial in your nutrition so you can maintain low body fat percentage. There's almost no way around it if you want to be efficient at the sport, especially at the lever-based skills. We are talking about 10% body fat if you can sustain that. If you're trying to lose weight, 2 meals a day are great because it's very hard to fit in the calories that your body needs, hopefully reaching fat loss. If you don't need to lose weight and you are easily dialing in your nutrition to maintain about 10% body fat, which is very low, then preferably you will eat 3 to 4 meals a day, which will be easier for you to navigate all of the macronutrients and all the micronutrients that you need around your workouts, and spreading the protein synthesis multiple times a day. That's better. If you're really trying to lose weight currently, you're in a fat loss phase, then yes, I would say that I can accept 2 meals a day as it helps people lose weight, but it's not ideal for strength. Another question, dips and pull-ups, really the base scenario of handstand push-up or just grinding handstand push-up can you achieve? So he basically asks whether you should do dips and pull-ups to achieve handstand push-up. Pull-ups doesn't help handstand push-up directly. Yes, they help strengthen your back, which is a stabilizer in the handstand push-up. Dips absolutely strengthen your triceps and your shoulders for the handstand push-up. And I previously mentioned that if you are going the pure bodyweight route and you don't want to add any fancy progressions, external weight, external load, whatever, then my preference is get extremely strong at the dips, become a master of the dips, bodyweight sets of 20, multiple sets of 20. So you can start practicing the handstand push-up from the wall. Partial reps, on the wall, wall assisted. You don't have to worry about the balance, but you can definitely start practicing on the wall. Because I think the pike push-ups are a bad progression for beginners. They have too much room for interpretation, and most beginners really screwed them up. You can't screw the dip as much. Obviously, anyone can, but whenever you're in the air supporting yourself, it's basically your pure body weight, so there's less room for interpretation. Get extremely good at the dips, move on to the handstand push-up the moment you can, start practicing on the wall and ditch the pike push-ups altogether. Gunblaze asks, also does back lever go on push or pull day? So it is technically a pull exercise, but I always program it whenever I program it, which is not a lot, as a push exercise because it fatigues the pushing muscle groups more so than the pulling muscle groups. So it's easier, smarter programming wise. It doesn't interfere with the rest of your workouts as much, but I don't program back lever a lot. Nowadays I only use it as a prerequisite preparatory exercise for the Iron Cross. Can pseudo planche push-ups be compared to weighted dips for strength and hypertrophy? No, short answer is no. Planche push-ups, pseudo planche push-ups are a great planche specific exercise, but since you are not able to move a lot of weight in this pattern, it hints of the potential of hypertrophy or lack thereof with the exercise. The exercise is limited by your elbow flexor at the end range of motion, which is mostly about tendon strength. So it doesn't have a lot of potential to build muscle as much as weighted dips, where you are able to load 100% external added body weight, even 200% added body weight using chains or whatnot, which really directly points at the amount of muscle mass that is recruited in this exercise. Benjamin RRRR. When missing a session, is it better to stick to the schedule or train occasionally on consecutive days? I would train on consecutive days. So if I miss a session, my next priority is to fit this session in whenever I can. Okay, because I want to get X amount of work done in a training cycle, a micro cycle, a week basically. Some training schedules are not weekly based, but most of them are 7-day based. Nonetheless, I want to fit all of my work, X amount of work, in that same microcycle, in that same training week. Even if I missed a session, I will put it on a rest day, or even I will do 2 a day on another training day to fit the same amount of work in. Okay? That's what I do. I try not to miss sessions. There's still a lot of wiggle room even if you miss the session. Lee Levin Nivelel. How would you implement machines in calisthenics and weight training method? Quite simply, the same way that I advocate for accessories at the end of your workout, after you've done your main compound movements or your main skills, you will fit the machines right in the accessory section. It doesn't have to be necessarily dumbbells or bodyweight exercises. It can be machine training as well. I know that it's not as mainstream to advocate for machines, although I do see some form of a comeback for machine training. It is an option for the end of your workout where you don't have to worry about stabilizing muscle group because it is a predicted pattern using the machines, and you can simply focus on using exercises that target muscle groups that hopefully directly help your main skill or your main compound movement. Example, if you're training pull-ups, you can definitely use a machine thereafter to incorporate some type of a unilateral row. Okay, so it is objective, you can measure it, you can isolate each arm at a time so you can take care of any imbalances you have between limbs. There's definitely good use in machine training. Put it at the end of your workout after the compounds. Ron Cohen 43 asks, what about the fat loss? Did you reach your goal? So I don't know if you noticed, but I was on a fat loss phase. I significantly trimmed down from 83.5 to 78.7. It took me 6 weeks. 5 kilograms, 6 weeks. From a point of already being relatively lean, quite lean for myself. I was about 12% body fat. So I was basically the leanest I've been ever, probably, and carrying the most amount of muscle mass with this 78 kilogram body weight. I reached a point, although I initially thought about let's do a challenge and reach 76 kilogram, which is extremely lean and low body weight for me. Remember that I trained rings all the way up weighing 86 kilograms, which is something like 190 pounds, 195 pounds, I believe. It's a lot on rings. But the challenge of 76, it was just ego talking. And I reached a point with my fat loss that I had no good reason other than the fact that I told myself to reach 76 to really go on and pursue this diet. I was sacrificing a lot. The day revolved around how do I manipulate food so I can end my day with some level of satiation that I don't kill myself. And at that point I told myself, you know what, it doesn't really serve the purpose. Once a year I do a fat loss phase where I basically cut down any unnecessary amount of fat that I've gained throughout the year, which is not a lot because I keep a solid nutrition base for myself. And that's the way it goes, rinse and repeat. So I reach about 85 kilogram, cut about 5 kilogram once a year, and slowly, hopefully if you've done strength training right, you should come back down to a higher weight with the same body fat, or low weight but with more muscle mass. So it's always, it's like a stair progression, like a step progression, where you diet down but you have slightly more lean body mass each and every year. Kate versus Varjaze. How would you structure a hypertrophy phase and a strength phase? Weeks, sets, and reps. Okay, so for strength athletes, I usually recommend about 1-to-1 hypertrophy block to strength block. If you are confused about the difference between the two, remember that they mostly overlap. For a hypertrophy block, I would recommend aiming to accumulate with a certain main exercise 25 to 50 repetitions in total. That can be 5 sets of 10, 4 sets of 8, 6 sets of 6, all of which end up with the 25 to 50 rep total. That's a fairly decent amount of volume with the main compound movement or skill. That's enough for a hypertrophy phase. For the strength phase, you would aim to accumulate 10 to 25 total reps per main exercise per workout. So rep set schemes like 8 sets of 2, 10 singles, 3 sets of 5, 5 sets of 3, all end up in that rep range of 10 to 25. You will work with different loads or progressions to accumulate the difference in volume. You will use heavier weights, reaching 10 to 25 repetitions, than you would for the 25 to 50 repetitions. That's how I would program. There's a lot of productive sets and rep schemes. I would just try to aim for that sweet spot of volume in each block. Matthew's strength journey. Workout structure, traditional gymnastics ring movements. Workout structure, I have it in the book. Check my ebook. Start your practice with 1 to 2 main skills. Focus on that. Do short holds or short singles, triple doubles. Do that for about 5 to 10 sets, and then back off to some secondary exercise of the main skill. Example, you can do planche holds and then back off to planche push ups or planche presses with a moderate rep range, and then back off to accessories, which is basically bodybuilding, where you want to target your weaknesses. For example, I know that my left elbow flexors are way off my right elbow flexors, so it's very important for me to incorporate some sort of a preacher, unilateral preacher curl whenever I'm on a ring phase, because that really gets targeted a lot, that bicep tendon, distal bicep tendon at the elbow. If I strengthen the left one, I know I'll feel significantly more comfortable and strong on rings. So that's the end of your sessions, that's the accessories. Think about your weaknesses and target them in a bodybuilding manner. So main skill, maybe maximum 2 skills for the day. You will do them for short isometric holds or singles up to triples. You will do multiple sets. Back off, some other compound exercise, and then the accessories. J. Max Rodriguez asks how to program 2 hard static skills, full planche and cross, without losing bent arm strength. If you just specify on the planche and cross, you will lose bent arm strength. You will maintain some because they do work necessary muscle group, overlapping muscle groups, but you won't maintain all of it. If you want to maintain most of it, you will start your sessions with a cross or with the planche, which are your main skills. That will be most of your workout. Most of your workout will be devoted to your skills. But you can save about 10 to 20 minutes at the end to work some general strength exercises. Dips, pull-ups, chin-ups, rows, push-ups. All of these will help maintain bent arm strength. Gymnasts have been using circuits and tons of accessory exercises, not just with bodyweight, but also barbell overhead presses, barbell rows, dumbbell curls, dumbbell overhead presses, bench press, and so on. Yes, they do it weekly. They do it extremely frequently. In addition to the specific ring strength, if you want to maintain general strength and well-roundedness. I would say that in general, it is a great advice. A lot of people really hop on calisthenic skills because it's fancy now, it's mainstream. Well, I wouldn't say mainstream, but it definitely looks cool, but eventually for the same reason that you started calisthenics, because it's a beautiful way to present strength, right? Demonstrate strength. That you will find other exercises extremely beneficial for you, like front squats, if you want to be athletic, strong. So instead of neglecting all general strength, bent arm strength, those sort of exercises, from the get-go, keep working them. You don't have to work them to the same degree that you focus on the specific skills, but about 10 to 20 minutes at the end of your workout will do a lot. Diogo Peroni, 84 kilogram body weight and can lift 40 kilogram, which is my PR, in chest to bar chin-ups, but can't yet muscle up. Lack of strength or technique? Both. I've seen people that can muscle up without 50% body weight chin-up. I've seen people, but I would generally say that you should aim to get 5 reps for multiple sets even of your body weight with the chin-ups or pull-ups before you start specializing in the muscle up. Most people will find that since they got so strong training weighted pull-ups or chin-ups that they got the muscle up immediately without any specific training. If you do need, at the point of already having 50% body weight for sets of 5, another specific muscle up exercise for the transition phase, which is where most people fail, or if you have the pull-up and chin-up strength, then add the specific ring muscle up or bar muscle up exercise, but not beforehand. It's just a waste of time. You don't need it. And you don't even have 1 rep with half your body weight. That's almost half your body weight. So I would say that focus on building pull-up and chin-up strength. Ale Norlak. What is more important for calisthenics performance? Daily protein or carb intake? It's a binary question, but if I roll with that binary black and white question, if you were to ask me, hey Refael, you can either only eat protein from now or only eat carbs from now. So basically zero, what do you prefer? Having 0 protein or 0 carbs? I'll have 0 carbs because protein are essential for life, not just for performance, but certainly for building muscle, building tendon strength, vitality, motivation, brain function, hormonal function, and so on. Carbs are a great energy source for calisthenics, but are not necessary. You can theoretically perform simply using fat as fuel. But if we answer it in a more practical way, you don't have to only have either protein or carbs. You should have both. You should have a sufficient amount of protein and carbs to support calisthenics. If you are looking for the ideal way, that's what you'll do. You'll have sufficient amount of carbs and protein. Jugla Chuchan, 21. Can straighten my arms in front lever? Usually it's just a matter of weakness. Okay? People bend the elbows to decrease the level, but it doesn't, front lever doesn't require a lot of elbow integrity as iron cross, Maltese, planches do. It doesn't really stress the elbow as much. So people who bend the elbows at front lever are simply too weak to hold it. That's it. Work with the right progression where you don't have to bend your elbow in order to hold it. Get strong, and then you're able to improve. Costa Calisthenics, do you think people use genetics too much as an excuse, or do they indeed matter for elite skills? Obviously they matter. For any sport at the elite level, you have to have elite genetics and the rest of the stuff: nutrition, sleep, recovery, stress management, so on. At the elite level of each sport, there's a combination of both. You won't be the pure elite without having both of them, okay? So genetics matter. Some people are born taller, wider wingspan, heavier, different bone structure, different bone ratio, which is simply not ideal for the sport. You'll have to be built for strength and power. You'll have to be built light and small, framed, to be very efficient in calisthenics. And if you have the both of them, you have a high ceiling, high potential. Then you need to put in the work in order to really express that. All of the other stuff are important as well. You can reach elite calisthenics level without having elite genetics, because the sport is really at its infancy. So you can be very, very good despite having moderate, decent genetics. Kyriakos Gavras, what are your favorite sources of fat? I don't consume direct sources of fat because I get plenty of fat from my animal sources of protein, like eggs, like beef, like butter, like dairy. So I don't add extra. Jugla Chuchan 21 asks, I can front lever for 5 seconds, but my lower body sinks. It will get better by time. So you asked already a question about the bent elbows in the front lever. Same issue. You are not strong enough to hold the progression. It's not a matter of having core strength. It doesn't limit you. You're simply not strong enough to hold the progression. It is mainly lat strength. But for your question, practice the progression that you can hold with the right technique, which is straight, elbows parallel to the ground. Get strong in that, accumulate time, and then move on to the next progression. Don't practice bad technique. D. Bastaros 777, how to deal with sickness, school, etc. getting in the way of program. Wow. If school gets in your way of program, then wait till you have kids, a career, mortgage, house, whatnot. Okay, so it's never an excuse. Just get the job done. If you need to do it before school, do it before school. If you need to do it the moment you get back from school, do it the moment you get back to school. Prioritize it and execute. That's it. Some young people, young enthusiasts, train a lot, too much. Their program is too demanding, so they can't find a way and to motivate themselves to practice 3 hours a day, 6 times a week. That is simply too difficult for you to fit in because it's too demanding. So you should start with something that is much more sustainable as a practice for you right now. Not Yambul, how would I increase my reps to 3 sets of 10 pull-ups when I can do 10 reps just in one set? Okay, so my recommendation would be, don't reach failure. Don't start your session with a max all-out repetitions pull-ups, because then the rest of your session will be significantly lower in quality and power output. Perform out 7 to 8 reps, but for multiple sets, for about 5 sets. So the average quality of your repetition will be significantly higher. You will maybe hit failure only on your last set, but you accumulated more reps and more quality reps than if you were to go all out on your first set. Ben Rubin 06. How much of a limiting factor do you think height and weight are? They are not a limiting factor. If you compare yourself to yourself, you can always improve, which is what you should do. Don't compare yourself to others. Obviously, height and weight affect calisthenics performance, but if you look at the individual, regardless of the weight and height, you will be able to progress. Okay, so if you weigh 90, 100, even more than that, if you are 2 meters tall, it doesn't matter because you're focusing on yourself, on pull-ups, chin-ups. How can I take it from 5 reps to 6 reps? It doesn't really limit you. It's just your practice revolves maybe around other exercises that if you were significantly shorter and lighter, you would perform Maltese holds and presses by now, but it's not really, it doesn't matter. It's a hypothetical scenario that you shouldn't worry about too much. Should vegetarian be thinking about collagen intake when training exercises like planche? So collagen intake is important, I would say, especially for calisthenics athletes because you stress the joints a lot. So you want to build some cartilage back, tendon, bones, ligaments, joints, because you really stress the muscle at the end ranges of motion near the tendon, near the joint. So it's important. There are not any quality vegetarian collagen sources. You need to get it from animal source of protein or supplement if you can't. Things like bone broth, meat on the bone, and you can cook it slow cook, so all of the collagen dissolves into the fluids. That's very, very healthy. So yeah, I would recommend supplementing or consuming preferably some collagen. Paolo Florit, full day of eating to bulk, 2 grams protein per pound of body weight. Well, 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight maybe is a little stretch, a bit of a stretch. Science backs up the notion that there's no upper limit of protein. You won't do any harm eating more than 1 gram or 2 grams per pound of body weight even, unless you have a preconditioned, pre-existing kidney malfunction, which is rare, and it is a case where you should really seek medical profession. Nonetheless, for other people with no kidney diseases, there's no upper limit. That being said, I don't think that you need 2 grams per pound of body weight. So maybe from 1 to 1.5 grams, maybe that's enough. 1 gram per pound of body weight to 1.5 grams per pound of body weight, and then full day of eating to bulk. So whenever I try to add mass, I increase meal frequency. So increase meal frequency to about 4 to 5 meals a day. So the absorption of nutrients and protein synthesis is much better. And just consume the same whole foods, great sources, natural sources of foods, high protein diet that you were eating on a maintenance or a fat loss phase, but increase the quantity. Most people, they fail on the bulk because they start eating shit, so they look like shit. But if you kept the whole sources of food, natural sources of food, and try to add more of them, you will add quality mass with little to no fat mass. ZZZPPP0. Do you think bar or ring pull-ups are more beneficial? Neither are more beneficial than the other. Both are great. They are mostly similar, unlike exercises where you are above the rings, where the instability of the rings really come into fruition. Ring chin-ups, bar pull-ups, both are great. I personally prefer the bar pull-ups because the rings slightly aggravate my elbows more so, even though you can rotate them. I find them not as sustainable as the bar pull-ups as a practice. J Street workout, how to break plateau. My way of breaking plateau is not really reaching plateau to begin with. So eventually you should spot the pattern. Okay, so in about every 10 sessions of the same kind, if I don't switch anything, I hit the wall. Okay, so don't hit 10 sessions in the row of the same kind. Switch it beforehand, okay, before you get plateaued, before you burn out physically and mentally. And to answer your question in a more direct fashion, change the rep range. That's the way to break plateau, to enable rep range. So if you were training 5 to 6 rep range, you can go either higher or lower, depending on what you did recently. Okay, so you do the opposite. If you've worked low reps for a while, you should go high reps, and vice versa. If you are training 5 to 6 rep range, you can go to 6 to 8, or you can go lower, 2 to 4 rep range. And then you start progressing, adding reps, adding reps, adding reps. And before you hit the plateau, boom, you switch the rep range again. More Edry, street lifting prerequisites. There aren't really a lot of street lifting prerequisites because those exercises are significantly scalable from the get-go. We are talking about barbell squat, bar muscle up, dips and pull-ups. Barbell squat, you can start with an empty barbell, almost anyone can, unless you're extremely frail, elderly person. And you can easily apply the weight that you want and the weight that you need. Dips, if you need a prerequisite, that would be the push-up. Pull-ups, if you need a prerequisite, that will be your body weight rows. Those can serve as prerequisites. If you are not strong enough in bar muscle ups, then keep strengthening the pull-ups and the dips, and you will eventually be strong enough to perform the bar muscle ups. But there's not a lot of prerequisites, as in calisthenics skills or gymnastics strength, where your way of progressing is actually changing the exercise. Filippo, should pain while pull-ups just in pull-up overhand position, not in chin-up or neutral? Shoulder pain while pull-ups. Okay, so shoulder pain in pull-ups, in overhand pronated grip, usually it means that you have impingement, shoulder impingement in a hanging position. I would say that you need to stretch your external rotators. You can Google slipper stretch, improve them. I took this advice from Marco Vactilia, which is a Finnish ring champion, multiple consecutive years on rings. He's a gymnast. And you need to stretch your external rotation, that will increase your mobility and the in the capsule, the amount of space that you have between your acromion and the ligaments, so that you don't really scrape one another, creating inflammation there. And you do that. And you can regress for now, do rows to maintain some back strength whilst you're rehabbing, and come back with more mobility to pull-ups. Dodson Hayden, how to properly program weighted movements while avoiding overuse injuries. Okay, so overuse injuries come down to sticking to the same variation endlessly. Because you run down the same ligament, the same muscle in the same fashion, in the same pattern. For anyone who really pushes intensity in performance, eventually they'll get an overuse injury because the stress wasn't laid out, spread amongst different variations. So for instance, if you do barbell overhead presses and dumbbell overhead presses and handstand push-up and you rotate between them, each and every variation is different enough so it doesn't stress the ligaments and joints in the same way each and every time, really reducing the risk of injuries. Yo rec, how do you incorporate mobility into your training? I don't have any profound mobility routine right now. I just do some stretches at a warm-up, something to keep, general level of mobility for my function. 5 minutes a day, that's about it. For me, it's mostly hip stretches, because I have lower back previous injuries for a decade plus. So you should individualize the mobility routine to your demands, whatever you need to stretch the most. And I like daily mobility routines because it keeps your body feeling well without having the soreness of stretching too much constantly. RB LRT, beginners should focus on building muscle first, true or false? Okay, so the real answer is that you will focus on building strength, and as a byproduct you will gain muscle. You don't have to separate it like you would gain muscle without strength and eventually practice strength training when you'll be big enough. No, okay? That's the true answer. If by your question you refer to the notion that a beginner should practice with relatively higher reps and more variety of exercises similar to how a bodybuilder would train, then I would say yes, this is true. I don't like that beginners train too heavy, too intense, and too specific from the beginning. It leads to a very shallow, narrow practice, increased risk of injury, increased mental burnout, short training career, if you can call it so. I think that you should build a solid base first with more exercises, more variations, less sets per exercise using more exercises, and relatively higher rep range, as you won't benefit as much at this stage as a beginner from a 1 to 5, 1 to 4 rep range. James Yongo, can ring push-ups help you achieve a normal one-arm push-up? Not as much, because they have different failing points. The limiting factor in the ring push-up is the lockout. The limiting factor in a one-arm push-up is about 90 degrees at the elbows, mid-range. Okay? So completely different failing points. It means when you strengthen the ring push-ups, yes, obviously you'll get somewhat stronger. It will transfer over somewhat to other exercises, but indirectly. If you want to be very strong at one-arm push-up, do one-arm push-ups or weighted push-ups or any exercise that has a similar sticking point. If you can do 50 ring push-ups, obviously you'll have a one-arm push-up, but the transferability is minimal. Tiago Borgech, building 3 sets of 8 overhead press with 60% body weight to build strength for bodyweight overhead press. Okay, great. What's the question? What else do we have here? Okay, so I think we covered all of the questions that I wanted to cover today. That's bodyweight strength Q&A number 3. Thank you for your questions. If you want bodyweight strength and size program, check the link in the description below. Catch you next time.